Do you remember how we loved to listen to the soundtracks played on The Crow and Goodwill Hunting? Yeah, we all liked the soundtracks that were featured in blockbuster movies made in the 90s. We're talking about movies like Batman Forever. When most people think of the Batman Forever soundtrack, Seal's Kiss from a Rose tends to come to mind, and for good reason. The song is a classic that put the now iconic artist on the map. The music video also features a montage of select scenes from the film, as well as Seal performing atop a Gotham tower in front of the famous bat signal. However, the remainder of the soundtrack also contains a compelling dose of classic 90s alternative tracks from a diverse range of artists. Whether it's songs like 8 by Seattle, emo pioneers Sunny Day Real Estate, or alt-rock darlings Mazzy Star's Tell Me Now, the Batman Forever soundtrack perfectly reflected the grit and occasional wit of the DC film. Other standout tracks include Smash It Up, a supercharged rendition of 70s English punk group The Damned, as performed by SoCal rockers The Offspring, as well as The Riddler, an original by Wu-Tang Clan alumni Method Man about the film's main antagonist, played by Jim Carrey. Do you also remember The Crow? While the MCU may rule the box office these days, few superhero movies have ever been as cool as Alex Proyas' moody supernatural film, The Crow. A standout for its goth aesthetics, the release was also mired in terrible real-life tragedy due to the untimely passing of its star, Brandon Lee, who died accidentally in an on-set mishap. Now, The Crow has amassed a devoted cult following and remains as innovative as ever, and its soundtrack is no exception. The Crow soundtrack features a host of moody and visceral tracks from The Cure, the Jesus and Mary Chain, Helmet, Rage Against the Machine, and Stone Temple Pilots, to name a few. It also includes a handful of notable covers that have since become fan favorites, including Nine Inch Nails' rendition of Joy Division's Dead Souls, and Rollins Band's take on Suicide's Ghost Rider. The Crow soundtrack is a dark collection of some of the best industrial, hard rock, and post-punk that the 90s had to offer. How about Can't Hardly Wait, produced in 1998. Can't Hardly Wait was a generation-defining teen rom-com and an incredible who's who of 90s stars. The high school graduation film not only features an impressive ensemble, but also a soundtrack that encapsulates the vibe of a house party and all of those senior year feelings. The soundtrack for Can't Hardly Wait kicks off with Third Eye Blind's aptly titled anthem, Graduation, and also includes songs like Smash Mouth's Can't Get Enough of You Baby, Blink-182's punk directive, Damn It, and Missy Elliott's Hit 'Em With Da He, featuring Lil' Kim and Mocha. These soundtracks gave that unadulterated graduation party energy. While Charlie Korsmo's iconic cover of Guns N' Roses' Paradise City as sci-fi loving nerd Lichter might not make it on the track listing, the original glam rock hit sure does. It's up to you to decide whether Axl Rose has what Lichter has, though. If you remembered Can't Hardly Wait, then you should remember Clueless. I really don't think there could be a more monumental teen movie than Amy Heckerling's Clueless. Not only did it boast an incredible cast, timeless wardrobe, and a multitude of on-screen moments that shaped pop culture, it also featured an expertly curated soundtrack. The Clueless soundtrack features an eclectic mix of prominent acts like Coolio, Counting Crows, and Radiohead. Emerging acts like the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Smoking Popes, and the Muffs made cameos in the film, giving them a major platform at the time. While many have covered Kim Wilde's legendary 80s hit, Kids in America, over the years, 90s pop punkers The Muffs made the classic song their own and a key element of the beloved film. Put this one on and you'll feel just like Sharon Dion riding with the top down through the valley. What about Empire Records? Rule number 1. If you're gonna set a film in a record store, it has to feature an exceptional soundtrack. Thankfully, Alan Moyle's 1995 coming-of-age hit, Empire Records, understood the assignment. With songs from Better Than Ezra, The Cranberries, and Gin Blossoms, Empire Records' soundtrack felt like the intersection of indie rock plucked straight from the college radio circuit and a subtle homage to some of the decade's best, yet niche artists. One of the greatest moments on the soundtrack comes from the Lemonheads frontman Evan Dando and his rendition of Big Star's The Ballad of El Goodo, which showcases his signature crooning vocal style, drenched in somberness. While Empire Records didn't impress at the box office, the film and its soundtrack have since become cult classics, and rightfully so. 10 Things I Hate About You. 10 Things I Hate About You soundtrack is packed with some of the best alternative offerings of the 90s, from the ska punk of Save Ferris to the alt-rock stylings of the Cardigans, Semisonic, and Sister Hazel. Letters to Cleo, who appeared in the film in several scenes, including The Club, Cat, Julia Stiles, Goes To, and The Prom also offered 2 exceptional covers, Nick Lowe's Cruel to Be Kind and I Want You to Want Me by Cheap Trick. The band famously played the latter on top of the school's rooftop overlooking the Puget Sound during the end credits in a very expensive scene director Jill Junger went ahead with without approval from Disney. It couldn't be a more perfect choice though, as it immediately evokes memories of Kat and Patrick's, Heath Ledger, undeniable chemistry, and charming love story. It's simply impossible to not smile when listening to this soundtrack, and the same can be said for the film and its mastery of teen romantic comedy. Dazed and Confused. A plethora of films have soundtracks, but not that many have sequels to such, and there's just one, Dazed and Confused. Not only did Richard Linklater's throwback classic have a cast that few films could rival in any way, shape, or form, but its first soundtrack featuring Alice Cooper, The Runaways, ZZ Top, Black Sabbath, and so many more rock and roll for your party and your soul icons is for your deadbeat dad who made just one child support payment. Perpetually stoned regardless of the time of day, Second Cousin Albie, and your nascent yet nostalgic AM radio-loving hearts. Rumor has it that approximately 10% of the film's budget was previously set aside for music rights, showcasing that the creators wanted authenticity. That's what we love about soundtracks, man. We keep getting older, but they stay the same age. Music from the motion picture Pulp Fiction. Before reading the pulp section of this piece, you may desire to scold us for this LP, seemingly being incorrectly alphabetized. But you're wrong. We are sticklers for both smugness and accuracy. So just sit in your Mr. Lou and jungle boogie the hell home if you've got one. Likely your favorite soundtrack here, and certainly from our second or most favorite movie mentioned, music from the motion picture Pulp Fiction was a welcomed retro and cinematic surfy throwback for audiences of all ages in 1994, even if the movie was inappropriate for those under legal smoking age. Audiences across the globe ate both this film and soundtrack up, proving that Quentin Tarantino sure knows how to write, direct a fantastic film, and most certainly how to curate a badass soundtrack, that's for damn sure. Natural Born Killers, a soundtrack for an Oliver Stone film. If you thought that Pulp Fiction was a little dark, let's go to an even more messed up place, fam, and dive into Natural Born Killers. Released on Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails' Nothing Records, which was a subsidiary of Interscope Records, it not only had a narcissistic album title, but it was a 75-plus minute journey that left the listeners soaked in blood and sweat, much like its motion picture. Acts not named Nine Inch Nails on this soundtrack include Cowboy Junkies, Patti Smith, L7, and The Dog Pound. And normally you'd assume that we are joking about the last inclusion, as we are sneaky little devils, but we are not here, we swear. It's still quite hard to believe that Juliette Lewis was only 21 years old when this movie hit theaters, and she rocked it. Goodwill Hunting. Goodwill Hunting, the 1997 drama directed by Gus Van Sant and written by co-stars Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, was undoubtedly a major launching pad for all parties involved. It was also huge for a then little-known singer-songwriter by the name of Elliott Smith, who provided 6 songs for the soundtrack. Whether it was the raw finger-pricked guitars and evocative vocals on Angelus, or the pop ballad Miss Misery, Smith's songwriting craft was simply unmatched and provided the perfect ambiance for the soundtrack. The film's success catapulted Smith from the humble indie rock circuit of Portland, Oregon, to fame and even the stage for the 1998 Academy Awards, where Miss Misery earned the late singer who died at 34 years old in 2003 a nomination for Best Original Song. Cruel Intentions. There's no doubt how formative and steamy this high school set version of Dangerous Liaisons was for a generation of teens. And while the outstanding cast featuring Reese Witherspoon, Ryan Felipe, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Selma Blair are busy toying with each other's emotions, the movie's soundtrack manages to cast its own spell on you. Cruel Intentions soundtrack features everyone from the legendary Fatboy Slim to alt radio mainstays Counting Crows and Marcy Playground, and even Britpop pioneers Blur and The Verve, who supplied their 1997 smash hit Bittersweet Symphony for the film's iconic finale. While one of the more underrated groups featured, Skunk Anansi's ballad Secretly is undoubtedly one of the most impactful songs on the soundtrack, due in large part to frontwoman Skin's commanding vocal style. Never Been Kissed. In 1999, at the tail end of an already stacked decade of rom-coms, Never Been Kissed, starring Drew Barrymore, was released and won over hearts everywhere. Even if the movie's plot about a reporter going undercover as a high schooler and falling for a teacher doesn't necessarily hold up, Barrymore's charm certainly does. And so does the movie's youthful romantic soundtrack. It features several standout tracks from established artists, including R.E.M. and The Smiths, as well as groups that were just emerging at the time, like Jimmy Eat World and Semisonic. In fact, it was Jimmy Eat World's Lucky Denver Mint from the soundtrack and their acclaimed 1999 LP Clarity that put the beloved emo quartet on the map, long before their success on the radio with The Middle in 2001. To this day, it's hard to not think of the last scene in which Barrymore's character, Josie, finally gets her first kiss whenever the Beach Boys' Don't Worry Baby comes on. Singles. The 90s will always be synonymous with the grunge scene, so it would be remiss to not mention the 1992 cult classic, Singles, that single-handedly captured the spirit of the movement. Singles was shot on location in Seattle, the birthplace of the scene when it was just starting to blossom, and features on-screen cameos from genre legends, including Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains, as well as an equally influential soundtrack. The soundtrack contains several songs from the aforementioned groups, as well as select tracks from the Smashing Pumpkins, Screaming Trees, and the Replacements frontman Paul Westerberg, among others. For certain music fans, it's essentially a unique time capsule of a better time. So which of these soundtracks did you love during the 90s? Let us know in the comments below.